So I grew up on Guam. We had massive typhoons, massive, where you'd lose the whole roof of the house. Okay, this is just like
Wow.
this just happened every few years. You sure learn not to get too attached to stuff.
You may wanna learn not to be walking down the street when this happens
Well, the
either.
thing is, very, very few people die during typhoons because you're given a lot of advance warning. Most houses are prepared for that. And so when I was a child growing up, we had a two-story brick house. And when the typhoon came, we would all go underneath the stairs, the brick stairs, and we would sit there and we would ride it out. And it's loud. Oh my gosh, the sound is when that typhoon is swirling over. But there's always, when the center of the storm passes because it's quiet and it's calm.
Mm.
And at the same time, you have this center within yourself. So and my mother was like that. And maybe that's how I learned that, because I remember one time we're just under there and we're trying not to be stressed because it's loud, it's scary, it's chaotic, chaos to the max. And my mother would say, "Oh, you want a cookie?" Right? So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? It's like,
Normalizing it.
yeah, normalize it. And at some level, she used food.
She
Right?
did, she did.
Oh, it's like, wait, what was that? So, but finding that peaceful place inside of you that is always there. It doesn't always have your attention, but it's always there.
And it's so interesting what you said, that it's noisy, and then when the center of the storm comes, it's quiet, and then does it get noisy again, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
before it goes away?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we might wanna remember that as a
Yeah.
nice metaphor, is that sometimes it does kinda go like
Mhm.
this
Oh, yeah.
until you level out, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Gosh, when you brought up that roof thing, and I
mhm,
just remembered a story when I was about 16 years old, and an eucalyptus tree. I was living in Northern California at the time,
mhm,
and a eucalyptus tree, the wind was blowing, 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 and never really saw the trees bend that much before. And
mm,
one of them fell on our roof,
mhm,
and it actually hit at my mother's bedroom, which was right across the street, from
mhm,
right across the hall from
mhm.
mine. And I was in there getting ready for work. And I don't remember what happened, but recently my mom said, Yeah, so you grabbed your saxophone, and Jesse, her husband, grabbed the baby.
You
And
get
I don't know
clear.
what I grabbed.
Yeah, I want to say something though about chaos that I think is important because we often think about chaos as being a negative thing. However, nothing new comes out of the status quo. It always comes out of chaos,
Mhm.
right? So what can happen is sometimes we'll grab on so tightly to things staying the same, the same, the same, the same, because the unknown can be a little scary. But but only if you want something new to come in your life, you have to make friends with chaos.
Mm. So those people who go and they're sort of trepidatious of this season, they are probably high noticers, but they're not really aware what they're noticing.
Feeling
And
it though. Mhm,
yeah, they're definitely picking up on something, but not really aware what it is,
mhm.
and blaming themselves. Like, it must be me. It must be something I'm doing wrong.
What's
So
wrong?
is there a
Mhm,
question, something that you could, I was thinking maybe we
mhm.
should try and ask ourselves, or notice when we are saying, is it me? It must be me, to be able to say, what else could it be? Or is there something better that you can
Mhm,
ask yourself
mhm.
instead?
Well, this isn't quite the same thing, but it's something that I learned to do, and I learned this, once from listening to a lecture by Angeles Arion, and she talked about this culture in Central, I think it was in Central America. I wish I could remember, but it was an indigenous culture that had been studied a lot because there was no violence in this culture. So you can imagine they were anthropologists and psychologists, they were interested. And what she talked about is that in this culture, they worked a lot with their dreams, so that people in the morning, everyone would discuss their dreams and they would use their dreams to inform their day. But what I found most interesting is they also taught everyone to work with their waking dreams, what we call daydreams. And so, if they had a negative daydream, um, like like and we have them all the time, right? It's like, let's say you're driving down the road and you have this quick fantasy of, oh my God, the car going off the cliff or something like that. I don't know about you, but I have those things. They just pop in and momentarily. And what they were taught to do is whenever they have those thoughts, they're to respond by saying, and that's a story that doesn't need to happen.
Mm.
And it's very calming, right? It takes you right back. If you have a positive daydream, like you imagine yourself saving some kittens from a burning building, they say to themselves, and that's a healing story.
Mm.
So, this idea of getting used to noticing, let's say something's not going okay, and you think, oh, and your mind goes disastrous. We all do this, right? You think about like the word, oh, this is going to end, this is going to suck, this is going to be terrible. And that's a story that doesn't need to happen. So
Mm.
when my children were just learning to drive and all their friends were learning to drive and they would pull up in front of the house, my mind would go car crash.
Yeah.
And that's a story that doesn't need to happen. So
Mm.
that's a technique that I use. I've used it for 20 years. No, maybe it's 25 years, at least. But
Mhm.
it helps you, first of all, notice where your thoughts are going.
Yeah.
And then using your awareness, your consciousness to put your focus on something that is more calming and soothing.
Mhm. Yeah, and even just that process of a
Mhm.
story that doesn't need to happen is
Mm.
what we hypnotherapists call the refusing of the suggestions. That is
Yeah,
so important. What we take in,
yep.
what we choose to take in, and what we don't choose
Mhm.
to take in, those
Yes.
suggestions. But a story that doesn't need to happen.
Yeah. I think it was Mark Twain that said this, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, I've had a lot of horrible experiences in my life, and it's a good thing most of them never happened. Right? Because we can do this. And that's where the power of our imagination is. What are the images we're going to create in our mind's eye? It's
Yeah.
our superpower, but a lot of people don't know how to use it properly. So often I'll hear people say, uh, I don't have a good imagination. And what I like to say is, what do you think worry is? Right? Worry is
Very
a bad use of a good imagination.
creativity, right? There's my
Exactly.
creative mind is at work again, worrying about something that'll probably never happen.
Exactly.
Oh.
So, but once you realize that, now you can work with it. You can start to steer the ship a little bit.